like this one are made possible by my patrons. Patrons like Gavin Torem, Mike Geeney, Lee Burrows, and Joshua. If you want your name read out in a video, or just want to get involved with my Discord community, check out the link in the description below. Math. Math is for blockers. It's an adage as old as magic itself. But it's not true, let's be honest. Math is also for aggro players, token players, blue players, and Tron players. Hell, even Boggles players have to count at some point. But above all else, I think combo players have to engage in a little bit of math. And my new favourite commander is no different, Brennard the Gingerbread Sculptor. Sure, you can play him primarily as a value-centric food token grinding engine, but he also opens us up to some absolutely insane combo opportunities. I made a deck tech a couple of weeks ago, and one commenter responded with this. Card Hitman89 said, we can make token copies of our enchantments with Brennard if we were to animate them. And this sparked something in me. It awakened a desire. Every time you sacrifice a creature, you create a gingerbread version of it with Brennard by exiling the original. This allows you to do some very, very stupid things. What I'm about to show you is a combo that makes more golems than there are atoms in the known universe. And no, I'm not exaggerating. Welcome to a first-class English major doing math with the help of patrons and friends and people on Discord, and probably getting it wrong. If I make a mistake somewhere along the line, please let me know in the comment section below. This is engagement bait. You guessed right. But first, a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, Elgato, who sponsor all of my content and provide me with the tools I need to make videos like this one. I utilize their entire ecosystem, from lights to stream decks and Wave XLR dials. My overhead webcam I use for pack openings, but most importantly, the stream deck. Stream Deck allows me to control my streams in real time with customizable buttons for soundboards, clips, and scene transitions. And most recently, I've started using it to edit videos like this one, where I can have my most used macros close to hand to make the editing workflow easier. Check out the link in the description below if you want to elevate your workflow or your content via Elgato. The wonderful thing about the combo I'm about to tell you is that almost every single piece is redundant, and thus can be fitted in and out with alternate versions, and thus you are more likely to easily assemble it. It also means that if you're disrupted by your opponent, you'll have another version of a combo piece somewhere down the line. In short, this is not just magical Christmas land. Let's start at the top. Firstly, we're going to need our commander in play. We're going to need Brennard. Brennard says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. And if you do, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 food golem artifact creature, in addition to its other types. And it has, well, the text of a food token, but that's not going to be relevant today. The idea is that you are reanimating or reincarnating a dead creature as a gingerbread golem, but we're going to abuse the shit out of this. With the example today, we're going off the back of that comment by card Hitman89. We're going to have an effect that allows us to turn our enchantments into creatures. In this case, we're going to go with the big blanket ones like Opalescence and Starfield of Nyx, but you can also do this on a smaller scale with a more convoluted way. Things like Dance of the Manse, bringing them back from the graveyard and turning them into creatures, or if we turn to artifacts first with a Microsynth Lattice, then using Karn or March the Machines to animate them. All of these pieces do things elsewhere in the deck, give us ways to beat face or build other combos or just general utility pieces. For example, March of the Machines plus Microsynth Lattice does blow up all of your opponent's lands and keep them around for us because we have a buff with our commander. That one will not make you any friends at the table. In short, we've got so much redundancy for this combo, it's literally falling out of our arsehole. Then we're going to need a sack outlet, preferably one that we can activate multiple times. Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Arena are fantastic for this because they give us mana, but Krark Clan Ironworks also works here, as the enchantments may already be artifacts. By the time we turn them to golems, they will be artifacts. And then we're going to want two doublers. Take your pick from Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, Parallel Lives, Anointed Possession, Adrix and Nev, or Mondrak. Keep in mind that Adrix and Mondrak together are creatures and can do this combo without the added cog, the added wheel of an Opalescence style effect, but I'm going to utilize Opalescence because it feels more old school and traditional, because I want to use Doubling Season for example. We are finally breaking Doubling Season. I know they've been rotting in folders for years. It's been coming a long time. We got there. Doubling Season and Parallel Lives are also recently printed in Wilds of Eldraine in the Enchanted Tales slot. Now we have an animated Doubling Season and a Parallel Lives, we're going to sacrifice them. When we sacrifice our Doubling Season, because we've got another doubler in play, it makes 2 golem copies of Doubling Season. We then sacrifice Parallel Lives, which makes us 4 copies of Parallel Lives. It's important at this stage to unpack and understand the rules of Magic pertaining to doubling effects. If you have any effect that gives you twice that many in Magic, it doubles each time you add a new doubler. In essence, 1 doubler gives you 2 copies of your original token. 2 doublers gives you 4 copies. 3 doublers gives you 8 copies. 4 doublers gives you 16 copies. 5 doublers gives you 32 copies. And 6 doublers gives you 64. And that's a really hard line to actually record. Remember, every single copy is a 1/1 golem token artifact creature that is buffed by Bernard. So now what? Well, we're going to use the mana from our sack outlets to cast a Precursor Golem. Precursor Golem is the only non-redundant part of the entire combo, but you can do other token generators, I guess, to get huge amounts of numbers, but this one really pushes it. Precursor Golem says that when it enters the battlefield, it makes 2 3/3 golem creatures, but it also says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell targeting a single golem you control, we copy that spell for each golem it could target, and you have to target a different golem with each copy. In short, if we target any of our golems, we copy the spell for every golem we have. Bearing in mind that Doubling Season and Power Lives are both golems with this interaction. Precursor Golem enters the battlefield. Instead of making just 2 lowly golems, we now make 2 times 64, due to the 6 doubling effects on board, so we make 128 copies of the Dumb Golem. That's 128 3/3 blank vanilla Dumb Golems, golems that don't have the extra text of Precursor Golem. And this is how long it took Magic the Gathering Online to process this interaction. This is real time, by the way. Whilst we're here, don't forget to check out coolstuffinc.com, a link in the description below. Use the code KENOBI at checkout to help support the show. Get 5% off your order as well. Yeah, I don't blame Modo. It's an older program. It's made out of nasal hair and yeast. So, yeah, sometimes it does take a little while to do anything like this technical, right? In the meantime, link to my Patreon down below. Oh, there we go. So far, so good. Before we proceed, we sack our original Precursor Golem. It comes back as 64 copies of Precursor Golem thanks to our 6 doubling effects, which then gives us 64 triggers to make 2 golems, which make 128 golems each. 128 golems each before applying doublers. With doublers, it's 8,192 dumb golems, 64 smart golems, plus the original 128 dumb golems, and the 6 doubler golems. We now have 8,390 golems. If you're under the age of 23, there's a strong chance, even if you had a hot dinner every single night of your life, that's more golems than you've had hot dinners. There you go. That's a British colloquialism for you. Are you still following the math? This was too much for Modo to follow. When this happened, it tried to resolve all of the precursor triggers, and then the game just said no and restarted. But I'm not finished. We need to do one more game action to really push this. But this game action is the one that really unlocks the door. We're about to spiral. So you can take the game action pill, where you continue watching the video, or you can click off, because if you keep watching, there might be some serious existential dread in your future. We are going to cast Rite of Replication, and we are going to kick it, and we are going to target a smart golem. This places 8,390 copies of kicked Rite of Replication onto the stack, and we'll finish up with the last 6 targeting, doubling, and parallel lives golems. When you put things on the stack, the last thing you put on is the first thing to come off. So that means our first one is going to resolve and make a load of doubling seasons. This means that if we place that many Rite of Replications on the stack, we have to resolve them separately because it changes the math with each one that targets a doubler that we resolve. We are far beyond my GCSE math comprehension at this point. The first Rite will create 5 doubling seasons. So that's before we apply doublers. It's actually 5 times 64 due to 6 copies of doublers in play. That's 320 doubling season golems that have entered the chat. But the second Rite of Replication starts to do the real special stuff, because we're now really scaling up, because we now have 326 doublers in play. For every token we try to make, the game now asks us to make, well, it's kind of hard to explain. The second Rite of Replication makes so many golems, I'm just going to have to show you the number that my patron Cheryl gave me on Discord, because that's right, I asked for help from math nerds to figure this out. And finally, we actually have a use for math nerds. You know when people make that joke that they wish they were taught something at school that was useful as opposed to, you know, how to do algebra and shit, like how to do your taxes. If you're an American, in England you don't do taxes unless you're self-employed. Anyway, well, this is it. This is the best use case. This is the most important use case for your math knowledge that you learned at school or university level. It's to figure out how many golems a second copy of Rite of Replication makes after you make 64 doublers plus 6 or 70 doublers. Yeah, this is the number. It starts with a 6 and it ends with a 0. We make this many fucking golems. Observation. That number has 96 zeros in it. Did you know that 96 is an octagonal number? I didn't. I don't even know what that means. For reference, a quadrillion is 1,000 million. It only packs 15 zeros. That's for a sense of scale for you. The third right replication makes so many tokens because we are doubling the amount of doubling we do with each doubler we put into play. Remember, each doubler doubles the number of cards we put into play. We're doubling for each individual doubler, and we have quadrillion, million, billions of doublers in play. We get to a point that it's bigger than a googol. A googol is a number followed by 100 zeros. We got to 96 with the first right replication. This is a googol. Here's a picture of a googol that I found on Google. The number is absolutely massive, and we still have 4 more golem doubler right replications to resolve before we resolve all the others, which will make golems doubled to the power of the number of, to the power of Google. It's at this point that I want to add an extra layer to all of this. We're currently trying to resolve 8,000 vital replications with the first 6 targeting doublers. Of course, we've made our whole goal of extra doublers. Don't forget though, there are 64 smart golems in play. That means once we resolve the first 8,000 plus copies of vital replication, we will resolve the trigger for the second of our 64 smart golems, placing a load of vital replications on the stack, targeting every golem currently in play. And since resolving the first of our 64 triggers of Precursor Golems to our second, we have made a fucking metric shit ton, like multiple googols of doubling golems. So when the second of our 64 smart golem triggers resolve, we put a googol's worth of vital replications on the stack. Do you see why this gets completely and utterly out of hand to a point that you can't even begin to comprehend how big this number is? We are in absolutely nonsense territory now. The numbers are so big it makes my arsehole quiver in fear. At this point, it's safe to say that through the careful application of 7 Magic the Gathering cards, we produced more golems than there are people on this earth, than there are stars in the sky, than there are grains of sand on the beaches and deserts of every single world in our universe. We've created so many golems that there are more golems in play right now than there are atoms in the universe. If we ate 1 golem every year for the rest of our lives, well, we wouldn't manage it, of course. We'd only eat around, 90 golems if we're lucky. But if we were to live forever and do that, then we'd spend more time eating golems than there is time between now and the Big Bang, times a googol. I'm not even sure if that's correct, but it sounds right. There is a distinct possibility that if every atom in the universe were a universe itself with the same number of atoms, we'd still have more golems. Or at least that's what Rami on my Discord said, then doubted himself, but I wanted to keep it in the video because it sounds good. Needless to say, if we were to collect this many golem tokens to utilize in a physical game, it would be heavier than the planet Earth, having its own gravitational pull that would tear time and space apart. Naki observed that it would be heavier than the largest black hole measured currently by man. I didn't realize numbers could get so big so quick. And there is a joke in there about erections. I didn't realize that all I needed to do to break both magic and math and my fragile sense of insignificance in the universe was to cast 8,000 copies of Vital Replication with 6 copies of Doubling Season in play. And I definitely would have never thought that Bernard, the gingerbread sculptor, would take me down this rabbit hole. A rabbit hole where the numbers are so large that we can't fit them in the hole. Ooh woo. But existence itself feels insignificant when observed besides it. And in that I mean we can't observe existence beside it. Not our existence anyway. The number is so large that if we were to scale back the hypothetical camera, we'd be so small by scale that we just wouldn't be observable. We just would almost not exist by comparison. We'd be so inconsequential that 7 elements of an equation effectively erased us from this picture. We no longer matter. We are inconsequential by comparison to the vastness that is both math and golem. Except, of course, we aren't though, are we? We're right here. The building blocks were put in place by a mere mortal, by someone just like you. A YouTube commenter called CardHitman89 left a comment on a video that inspired this idea and spawned this video. That the neurons firing in someone else's brain somehow created a message on the internet that traversed fucking oceans to then make neurons in my brain fire to start putting together something like this that made me write this out and record it and edit it and put it up. And now this idea is propagating to you at home who are watching this. Sure, that isn't a Googleplex of fucking golems, but it's impressive, right? We are all still here, and whilst dwarfed by the magnitude of this game state, of this pile of gingerbread, it still brought joy to me, to my friends, to my patrons around me as we discussed it on the Discord, and hopefully it brought a bit of that to you too. That in spite of this perceived futility and this complete lack of purpose when compared to the unknowing, unobservable and vastness of this universe, of golems and gingerbread, we still found solace and warmth, companionship and joy in the spaces in between. In many ways, there's a self-attributed, a self-created purpose right there. A little community of magic nerds had a chuckle in spite of an absurd existence. If that isn't reason to live in spite of the overwhelming existential dread that something like this can bring to you, then I just don't know what is. In the end, we can resolve all of those right replications, make all of those golems both smart and not smart, and then simply cast a Creator of Behemoth. And then we can declare aloud, proud, and rather ignorantly, well, math is for blockers. I hope you enjoyed this video. These videos and everything I do are made possible by sponsors like Elgato and Cool Stuff Inc. Use the link in the description below to pick up Elgato gear or pick up cards from Cool Stuff Inc. and use the Kenobi code at checkout to get 5% off your doubling seasons, your opalescences, and your Bernards. And until next time, continue existing in spite of the absurdity of it all. Ta-ta for now.